We're going to talk about the system and how the communists are at war with everything. We're going to talk about interest rates, what's going on at the Fed. Senator Ron Johnson is here. What's happening in the UK, all that and more coming up on I'm Right. There's something I want to talk to you about as it pertains to the system. Really the communists, but now that they've conquered the institutions, it's the system itself. Something normal people really struggle to understand, and that is this. They are at war. With what? That, of course, begs the question, well, what do you mean at war? At war with what? With everything. There is a mentality. It's demonic. Don't worry, communism's demonic, so you have to accept that, but there is a mentality that is like a virus on the left. American Democrats, really, they have this flowing through them, a mentality that everything is wrong, everything is bad, the entire world, every institution, including the institution of the family, everything must be burnt down and destroyed. I've called it a religion of domination, a religion of destruction so many times. I hope it's finally getting through to people. They are fighting a war. And because they view it as war, it justifies in their mind casualties. It's the inevitable conclusion if you believe you are fighting a war. For instance, this assassin of Charlie Kirk, somebody who's not going to ever get named on this show. We've learned that he was a relatively normal kid 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he was a normal kid. And then 2 years later, he's a demon. And a demon who thought he was right, thought he was at war. How did that happen? How in the world did he get that way? Well, as we get more and more information, we find out that he got sucked into this very, very dark internet world, this LGBTQ, tranny filth internet world. Now, why does that world exist? Why is that a thing? When your child gets on their phone and starts traveling through the internet, why is there even a rest stop that is an evil, demonic tranny world? Why is that a thing? Because they are trying to destroy our children. It's not accidental. It's not something they're passive about. They are trying to destroy everything. And your children are most definitely a target. And they can get them in and they can wreck them. And they think they're justified in doing so. They think they're justified in everything. Whether it's killing somebody, burning things down, vandalizing, destroying everything you love is the entire point behind it. Did you see they had a mural of Charlie at UNC Wilmington? And then somebody defaced it, painted a Black Lives Matter mural over it. Now, how in the world, in your mind, do you justify something like that? It's just a mural honoring someone who's dead, who meant a lot to people. How do you convince yourself you're the good guy? Well, their war they're fighting, it's constantly being reinforced by the elite communists in our society, elite communists in the media, elite communists in politics. They are telling these people they're at war. Have you ever seen Democrat politician speak on stage? Of course you have. We played you a million clips on this show. Have you ever seen their ads? You will notice something now that I pointed out. You've probably already noticed it. They're never actually selling, this is going to work for you and make your life better. That's very rarely even brought up. What they're always selling is revenge. This guy's bad. These people are evil. You elect me and I'll hurt them. Constantly reinforcing the notion that everything's bad, everything's evil, and you're at war with it. Everything's bad, everything's evil, you're at war with it. Why do you think they've fallen in love with that term fascist?
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent
the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
Credit to Western Lensman for putting that thing together. This kind of language over and over and over and over and over again reinforces in the mind of Democrats that they are fighting a war against evil, a war against everything, and that everything must be destroyed. Why is it they seem to wreck whatever they go into? Why? Why did they wreck the teaching profession, the nursing profession? Why did they wreck Bud Light, the Cub Scouts, the NFL, the FBI? Why? Because they're trying to. That is the whole point of it. They're trying to. People will point out, Disney's a great example of this. Disney had all these popular superhero movies, Avengers this and Avengers that. Now they're all flopping at the box office. Well, why do they keep promoting feminism in these movies? Why is everything gay now? Because they're trying to destroy it. They are at war with everything, absolutely everything. And it gives their conscience permission to do the worst things in the world, because you can do what you want to your enemy when you're at war. Did you hear Stephen Miller's wife?
The morning after our dear friend Charlie was assassinated, I take a step out on my porch and I had a lady out there saying, "I'm watching you." They then doxed my family by distributing flyers all over our neighborhood saying that my husband, Stephen Miller, is a Nazi, is a war criminal, and had our home address. They spread it all over our neighborhood and have continued to do so, not only at my children's parks, but around town. And as you and I both know, what they're intending to do is not just peacefully protest. And maybe these people are not the assassins, but they are inciting the same violence that we saw take out our friend Charlie Kirk last week.
They're at war. And they're not sorry because something terrible happened. That's what they wanted to happen. And don't for a second think that this violent mentality is simply isolated to a couple tranny freaks online. Did you see what a judge in Ohio said? This is what he said, quote, "How's he feel about gun violence and gun control in hell now? So a white guy killed him. Color it karma. Rest in hatred and division." That's a judge at war with everything good, with everything decent, everything you hold dear. He believes it is his job, his duty to tear it down. And that's why they operate the way they operate. And that's why the feelings, the emotions gush out of them in the most bizarre ways to normal people. Did you see this ABC reporter when the information about the text messages came out?
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who was transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was touching. He was touched. He, of course, has since apologized since the world came down on him, but that's how he felt. He's touched by the whole thing. The average Democrat is not mortified by violence. They are at war with everything, and they understand that violence is simply part of it, a necessary part of it. And look, the ones who aren't openly celebrate it justify it all the time. They're sometimes very overt about it, sometimes not. But how many different versions of what Montel Williams said on CNN here, how many different versions of this have you seen? He kind of had it coming.
There are people who are trying to pigeonhole this as a leftist thing and a right thing. And what we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this, we're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. He sat on that building for 30 minutes before he took the shot. Why did he wait until the first word trans came up? Then he took the shot.
You think he heard it? He could hear it?
I think he could hear it. I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other.
They are at war with everything. And this is why you must purge communists everywhere you find them. Get them out of your school board. Get them out of the teaching profession, the nursing profession. I don't care if you're a company that sells brake pads and you have communists in there. Get them out. Get them out of your society. Get them out of our country because they are at war with it. They're at war with themselves, too. Remember that. They're at war with themselves. They hate themselves. It's demonic. It's deeply disturbing. And this is now the fight we have. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. We are going to talk to Peter Navarro about the Fed in a moment. Before we talk to Peter, I want to talk to you about, well, another way you can fight the war back, and that's with your money. We have to put our money where our morals are. Over and over and over again, I have implored this. You have to take your money away from the evil communist corporations because they're also at war. They're using corporations to fight that war. They've talked about it many times. They saw the incredible power corporations have. They infiltrated them, and now you have the major cell phone companies sponsoring Black Lives Matter protests. Pure Talk doesn't do that sort of thing. Pure Talk loves the United States of America. Their CEO did 2 tours in Vietnam with Mac V. Sog for this country. They hire Americans, and you'll save a bunch of money. puretalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. Well, we can't forget about a couple things. First, we can't forget what happened with the Fed today. Gosh, they suck. And we also can't forget that the Biden administration spent its time locking up as many of its political opponents as they possibly could, done by the FBI. Joining me now is somebody who's going to talk to us about both of those things. Peter Navarro wrote a book about it, I Went to Prison So You Won't Have To, which we'll talk about here in a few. Peter, let's talk about the Fed first. Why didn't we get a bigger rate cut than this?
Because the Fed's incompetent, Jay Powell's incompetent, and the majority are basically Democrats who want to scuttle Trump's policy. I've written extensively about this. My criticism of Powell goes back to the first Trump administration back in 2018. In 6 years, Powell's made 3 major blunders that have cost the American people a tremendous amount of money and misery. And he just doesn't understand Trumpnomics. He raised rates too fast in 2018. There was no inflation then. He didn't need to do it. Cost us a bunch. When Biden was in to kiss Joe's derriere and get reappointed, he raised them too late. We uncorked virulent inflation, and now Jay is letting us all dangle in the wind because he doesn't understand Trumpnomics.
Can you help me understand, is this malicious? I mean, I realize he's not thought of highly and people think he's kind of a moron, but this sure seems malicious, especially when you lay it out like that.
I think it's malicious, and I think it's incompetence, and that's a very volatile mixture. Jesse. I mean, the problem is historically, Fed chairs are classically trained in not only economics, but macroeconomics and finance. Powell's a dunderhead. He's a lawyer. He doesn't know squat about economics. So that's a problem right there in and of itself, and might alone explain why he doesn't understand how the policies of Donald Trump, going back to the first term, can grow the economy faster without inflation. It's the strategic energy dominance, low energy prices, deregulation, and lower cost of businesses. It's the fair trade where we balance our deficit. All of those things. It just goes right over the quaff of Jay, but it's at the same time he's clearly malicious. He didn't like Donald Trump. He let us know early on in the first term. He wanted desperately to get reappointed, so he let inflation get out of control. So Biden would pat him on the head and give him a reward. And right now, he knows he's not going to get reappointed. He's just trying to do us damage. He's a bad man.
All right, speaking of a bad man, speaking of Joe Biden, I remember when you told us the story on this show of the FBI who you'd offered to turn yourself in, ignored that, and then decided to take you down on the jetway for maximum humiliation. They have a habit of doing such things. Now you wrote a book about it. Tell us about it.
Well, it's called I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to. It's basically a tagline from my speech at the Republican National Convention on July 17th. That was the day, Jesse, that I literally walked out of a federal prison after serving 4 months for defending the Constitution. And I got on that stage and gave a speech. My fiance came on at the end, and we uttered the line, "We got this," and we did. But the book really is a warning to the American people that if they can do this to me, if they can put Steve Bannon in jail, if they can try to put Donald Trump in prison, try to kill him twice, and now tragically assassinate Charlie Kirk, then none of us are safe. And the asymmetry between what the left is doing to us and what we're not doing to them in terms of holding them accountable is startling. So I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to is designed to wake up the American people to what's going on. It's a call for accountability. And beyond that, of course, it's pretty damn funny when you go into prison and do a diary. There's a lot of interesting stories. If you want to know what it's like to find yourself in prison for a misdemeanor that really wasn't a crime until they charged you with it, and spend 4 months with 200 felons, then this book's for you. And it's also a love story. I mean, my fiance, when we got arrested at the airport at Reagan National, we were trapped in a gangway by design. 3 came behind us with guns, 2 in front of us. They perp walked her, put me in leg irons. I wound up in John Hinckley's cell. It was crazy stuff. But Jesse, here's the punchline. This agent, Walter Giordina, okay, he's the guy that put me in leg irons. He's the guy that put me in handcuffs. We know a lot more about him thanks to the efforts of Chuck Grassley, the senator, and a lot of whistleblowers. And it turns out that this guy that put me in leg irons is also the same guy who was involved, allegedly, in every single attempt to throw Donald Trump out of office in the White House or keep him from being reelected. This guy was simultaneously involved in insurrections and election interference, if you believe what the whistleblowers say. And it goes back to, it started with the Steele dossier. I don't remember that, Jesse. That was the dossier that was fake. Everybody acknowledges that. Clinton, Hillary paid for it. And Giordina at the FBI was the guy who actually said it was real and started the investigation going. And he went through that. He went through Crossfire Hurricane. He was involved in the Mueller report. He was involved in Operation Arctic Frost, Crimson River. And what what my arrest does and my time in prison and this guy Giardina is amplify the war that's being waged against the people of this country who in a landslide elected Donald Trump. And there's a lot of rot going on. I went to prison so you won't have to. I would ask your audience to go to Amazon right now, drive this thing, buy it, get it up on the ranking of Amazon. Okay, here's the test. You can go there now, look at it, see what it's ranked now, and then in about 4 or 5 hours, go back and you'll see the power of the Jesse Kelly audience. Okay, you will see it, and I want this book out simply to wake people up. The stuff that happened to me shouldn't happen to any American, right? And my background, if you can see it, you got George Washington, Hamilton, Madison, Franklin. This is when they signed the Constitution in 1887. And this is what I was fighting for, the Constitution, the constitutional separation of powers. My time in prison began with the signing of that document, and the Democrats are trampling all over that. All they care about is power. And when they use that power, they do things that the people of this country do not want, full stop. We don't want what they're selling, full stop. And if we don't wake up, they're going to take back the House in 2026, and they're going to do all the crap all over again. So put them where they put me, in prison. I'll tell you who should go there. It's like if you believe everything about what we're seeing in the facts, it's James Comey, it's Clapper, it's Brennan, it's Page, it's Strzok, it's Adam Schiff, who was once again a buffoon yesterday at a hearing with Kash Patel. It's everybody who was involved in my imprisonment at the Department of Justice. They knew what they were doing. They broke the law. And here's the point. If we don't hold them accountable, they're just going to do it again. They're going to try to put us in prison. They're going to keep shooting at us and everything in between, Jesse. And I went to prison so you won't have to. It's meaningful. It's meaningful. I want it to mean that it's a wake-up call, and we got to fight back. We can never let them get in power again. And the people who are responsible for putting me in prison, for trying to put Donald Trump in prison, for putting Steve Bannon in prison, for bankrupting Rudy Giuliani, for trying to take away the law licenses of patriots like Jeff Clark and John Eastman, those people need to be held accountable. And Schiff needs to be in prison, not Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, or Donald Trump.
No doubt about it. Peter, thank you. Thank you, my friend. It is I went to prison so you don't have to. Highly recommend you go pick it up. And I highly recommend, while you're on the internet, go to chalk.com/JesseTV and get yourself a stack. Natural herbal supplements that will have you feeling good all the time. It's like a fog lifts out of your mind. It's like a mood booster. You ever wake up and you're just in a good mood? It's a good day. How'd you like to wake up like that all the time? You know why you feel down a lot? Because your T levels are low. We drink estrogen. It's in the water. Synthetic estrogens. We shower in it. It's friggin' awful. How do we fight back against losing half our testosterone? Half. 50% in 50 years. With a male vitality stack from Chalk. Or a female vitality stack for the ladies. Chalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back.
It may be impossible to learn who's telling the truth, but this hearing is an initial step in trying to answer why the top leadership of the CDC was fired or resigned before they could be fired. Turmoil at the top of the nation's top public health agency is not good for the health of the American people. Ever communicate he was going to change the childhood vaccination schedule?
Not until that very day. In that morning meeting, he said that the childhood vaccine schedule would be changing starting in September, and I needed to be on board with it. I could have stayed silent, agreed to the demands, and no one would have known. What the public would have seen were scientists dismissed without cause and vaccine protections quietly eroded. all under the authority of a Senate-confirmed director with unimpeachable credentials. I could have kept the office, the title, but I would have lost the one thing that cannot be replaced, my integrity.
Okay. Joining me now, Senator from Wisconsin, and a good one, Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, can you help me understand why government employees getting fired or resigned is always described as turmoil in the end of the world, where normal people get laid off, fired, move jobs all the time, but when a government employee leaves, it's the end of the world and the sky's falling?
Well, it's only turmoil when it's a Republican president, particularly President Donald Trump. Then it's turmoil, then it's the end of the world. Then it's, Senate hearings found out exactly what happened, when in fact, employment is at will of the President of the United States. And, it seems to make sense to me that the people that he does nominate and get confirmed are on board with what he wants to accomplish and what his department secretaries want to accomplish. It does not sound like, Susan Menares was on board.
Senator, something that struck me is that joke of a hearing today was not put on by Cory Booker. It was put on by Republican Bill Cassidy. Can you help me understand that?
Well, as I've been trying to point out in my hearings, which is, the goal of my hearing is just to ask people to open up their minds, open up their eyes, ask the question, what is causing this explosion in chronic illness? What's causing this explosion in autism? Could it possibly be related to vaccines and the massive numbers that were administered to children? But on the other side of that, and the vast majority on the other side of that, they're very pro-vax. It's a religious-like zeal. You can't ask questions. In the tail end of my hearing, the Democrat witness, Dr. Jake Scott, I just asked him a very simple question. I mean, what do you say to a parent who had a perfectly normal developing child, takes the child in for a vaccine, comes home, runs a fever, starts having seizures, never talks again, never speaks again? What do you say to a parent? Well, got a lot of sympathy for people like that. Well, good. I'm glad you have sympathy. How about we get to the bottom of what's causing that kind of reaction? And why don't we honestly listen to those parents? Because they're parents. They saw a perfectly normal child, got a vaccine, no longer have a perfectly normal child. You cannot ignore that. But that is, people like, I won't name a particular senator, but most of the senators on that panel, those CDC fired director, they will not listen to that other viewpoint. They will not listen to it. They just dismiss it. They ignore the vaccine injured, the COVID injection injured. That's why all those individuals feel so abandoned.
Why won't they listen, though? I don't understand. Is it arrogance? Is it honestly, does it come down to basic political bribery with campaign donations? The ones who refuse to listen. I don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm curious. I would like to know, why don't they listen?
Well, first of all, the appeal of a shot being able to prevent death and disease is strong. I mean, I understand the appeal.
Yeah.
And it goes back to really the smallpox vaccine. And so we've just developed this religious type of faith that vaccines, we keep hearing, they are safe and effective. They're safe and effective. I mean, the 1986 Childhood Vaccination Compensation Act acknowledges that vaccines are unavoidably unsafe, which is why we set up a compensation fund. But they're so profitable now. We went from a few vaccines to, in some states, over 80 on the schedule. And there have not been studies. I mean, our hearing last week with Dr. Jake Scott, he comes in, he's crowdsourced, 1,700 studies. Aaron Siri completely picked that apart. He had 661 studies verifying that the childhood vaccine schedule was safe and effective. The vast majority of those studies didn't even pertain to vaccines on the childhood schedule. And they just kept whittling it down. And basically there are no studies that claim, double controlled, placebo blind, whatever the razzmatazz is they give you for this incredible, robust research. We don't have robust research. We simply don't. That is a lie. But when somebody calls it a lie, when RFK Jr. calls him out, he just gets vilified. They don't have the proof. And quite honestly, Dr. Jake Scott, I think proved himself to be very unknowledgeable. I'll be kind, very unknowledgeable when it came to the COVID injection.
All right, can you explain, changing the subject a little bit, why Republican senators are getting ready to extend Obamacare? Do I have that right?
They're afraid of the political repercussions. They're afraid of the lies. They're obviously not honoring their promise to repeal and replace Obamacare, rip it out by the root and branch. I mean, the basic numbers should convince them. Prior to that extension, because of COVID in 2021, there were about 9 million people subsidized on the exchange, about 9 million. That went from starting about 5 since inception of Obamacare to about 9, pretty well stable for the last number of those years. Then we basically took away any kind of participation. They're $0 plans now. So people are just getting healthcare for free, exploded to about 20 million people on the exchanges. And the fact is, a lot of those people on the exchanges that the taxpayer paying premiums to insurance companies for don't even know they're signed up. You have unscrupulous agents and brokers who all they need to know is the person's name and their birth date. They can sign anybody up for healthcare, collect the commission, dollars flow directly into the insurance company. So we have literally about 12 million people on those exchanges that never used healthcare. Now, that's, it's normally does occur, 10 to 15% of people have insurance policy, never use it because they're healthy, but this is more than 50%. And their estimates about 6 million people don't even know they have the coverage. So we're literally pouring tens of billions of dollars into insurance companies, no claims made because the people don't even know they're signed up because some unscrupulous broker or agent signed them up to get the commission. And that right now, I don't know. Again, I just came from a luncheon briefing. Senator Rick Scott is bringing in experts trying to school Republican senators in terms of what the reality. There's a lot of resistance to reality, just like there's a lot of resistance to the reality that vaccine injuries are real. They exist. We ought to do something about it. Again, too many Republican senators go, but premiums are going to go up. And if they go up, they're going to go up, by the way, because of Obamacare. Obamacare has dramatically increased the cost of insurance policies on the individual market. That's the cost of Obamacare, the very, very, horribly designed program. And so now Republicans are going to throw more money at it. We're going to keep, we're going to extend temporary COVID relief subsidies. Again, it's sad. You can see my passion here. It drives me nuts.
Me too. Senator, what'd you have for lunch? Was it something yummy or gross? I could see a Senate lunch being gross.
No, they feed us pretty well here. So I had some nice chicken, vegetables, fruit, little cake.
A little cake? Nothing wrong with a little cake. Senator, as always, I appreciate you, sir. Come back soon. All right. I'm not a big cake guy. It's rarely good. Much more of a pie man or a cookie. Honestly, I'm a big cookie guy. That's probably why I need colostrum, to be honest with you. It's probably a big reason why my stomach sometimes was a little bit upset. Feels good now, though. I put Cowboy colostrum in my coffee every morning. You know that? I know by now you've heard about all the benefits of it. I told you before, my sister's the one who told me about it. I never get sick anymore. My stomach feels so much better. Stomach problems. So I just started putting a couple scoops in my coffee in the morning. It's chocolate. I essentially have chocolate coffee. It's amazing. The difference is amazing. Highly recommend it. You want a deal on some? Go to cowboycolostrum.com/JesseTV. Chocolate, strawberry, vanilla. Put it in your coffee. Put it in milk. It's delicious. You love it. We'll be back. President Trump's across the pond in the United Kingdom today, out there doing ceremony things with the king and whatnot. The king? Yeah, I guess he is the king. I'm used to calling him the prince. Anyway, it's the norm. This is what the United States president does, but it comes at a very odd time as UK citizens are rising up against the terrible tyranny that has befallen that country. So we figured we should probably talk to Connor about it. Joining me now, the host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube, which I would recommend, Connor Tomlinson. Connor, it's a little odd at a time when the The UK citizens are rising up in protest. Mr. President's going over there. What's going on?
Well, I expect, as per usual, Jesse, anytime President Trump visits our rainy little isle which gave birth to the United States, we're sort of like good friendly cousins in that way, Keir Starmer's just going to lie to his face. Last time he was over, he said that they weren't persecuting free speech despite locking up 12,000 people a year, that's at least 30 people a day, for social media posts or things that they say in public that other people are offended about. One of the worst examples in the last year was a guy burning a copy of the Quran outside the Turkish embassy, and he was prosecuted for offending the religious institution of Islam, and the fact that a guy tried to stab him and another guy tried to kick him in the head was used as proof that he had offended Muslims. So he was prosecuted before the guy that tried to stab him for being upset. Keir Starmer, I anticipate, is going to omit the fact that his cabinet in 2017 were calling for Donald Trump to be repelled from the UK. We're calling him a KKK sympathizer. We're calling him a misogynist and a Nazi. The former Foreign Secretary wrote in Time magazine those exact phrases, and the new Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who met President Trump as he stepped off the steps of Air Force One landing in the UK last night, she had in 2017 spoken at a rally saying that President Trump was supporting sexual assault for his grab them by the blank comments, and then stood up in Parliament calling upon Keir Starmer to condemn President Trump for sharing a tweet from British activist Katie Hopkins. Katie Hopkins, who was one of the headliners at the Unite the Kingdom rally last week, where estimates between 500,000 and 1 million peaceful, patriotic British people waved their flags in our own capital city, and by the very act of waving our own flag, offended every single globalist, liberal traitor, and hostile foreign national currently settled in our country. If they don't like our flag being waved in our capital city, they should go elsewhere.
Okay, I want to actually talk about that rally, Connor. I just saw video, right? I couldn't make it, but it looked enormous. You said 500,000 to 1 million people. Is this one of these one-off things where now everybody goes back home? I can't imagine the anger has subsided. Where does it go from here?
So I think this is the 4th rally overall that they have planned, and this is the largest because this is the most recent one since Tommy Robinson was released from prison. He was held in solitary confinement for the best part of a year for playing a film that had been ruled libelous. So thanks to the laws in my country, I can't talk any further about that. Never mind. But despite the media trying to make Mr. Robinson a bogeyman for the last decade or more, 800,000 to 1 million people turned out on the streets, largely peacefully. I think there were 8 arrests overall. There are actually more arrests on the Stand Up to Racism side, the Refugees Welcome side, which is sponsored by the Socialist Workers' Party that gets money from government unions, by the way. So there were more arrests on that side, fighting police, than there were among the much larger patriotic British crowd. And what was most interesting, Jesse, is that after Elon Musk addressed the crowd, after Tommy Robinson hosted the rally, and it was largely peaceful, Nigel Farage gave a press conference the following day. And Nigel Farage has his differences with Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson. They haven't been the kindest to one another in the past. And when the press kept calling on him to denounce Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson, as he had before, much like President Trump did in the days following Charlie Kirk's assassination, he didn't turn around and say, no, there are radicals on the right that I need to distance myself from. He turned around and said that the people that were marching were largely peaceful and patriotic because they are his own voters, and instead the real villains in Britain are the people who make women feel unsafe in London by importing foreign men that are 20 times more likely to commit sex offences than British men. The people that enable the pro-Hamas marches that have gone through our capital city every weekend and Wednesday since October 7th, and have launched fireworks at police horses but haven't been cracked down on because our demented Mayor Sadiq Khan, who, by the way, was a lawyer for one of the only surviving 9/11 terrorists, has decided that this is just absolutely tickety-boo. So I think that this march will continue to snowball. I think it will continue to be peaceful, continue to gain ground, and I think what it shows is that the moral legitimacy lies within the silent majority, that this is our country, that politicians should represent our interests, and that we, despite being demonized as far-right, racist, fascists, and Nazis, are no such thing.
Connor, can you help us understand, it's Americans don't understand the political system in the UK. We understand very little of it. Can you help me understand if it's possible to take back power for people who think and talk like you do? Because it seems like for the longest time from the outside looking in that there's been an attempt to do so and it always ends up falling flat. Is it possible?
So the Brexit referendum in 2016 is probably the most notable example because it came about, 5 or 6 months before Trump was elected. The twin shocks of populism at the time. And Brexit was betrayed by Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party, who, after they were elected in 2019 to get Brexit done, spent the next 4 years importing over 4 million immigrants to our country. To put that in perspective, Jesse, our country is the size of New York State. So we have the same level of legal migration that the whole of the United States of America does in a country the size of New York State. That includes 1 million Indians over the course of 4 years. If 1 million Indians were to solve all of our problems, then India wouldn't have any problems. Unfortunately, it has many, and turns out they cause a lot of problems when they come to the UK. Now, every single election and referendum since 1974, the British public have voted for lower migration, and they've always received more. And so, at the last election, people decided to punish the Conservatives. Most people did not vote, and instead, lots of people, 4 million of them, voted for Reform UK, Nigel Farage's new party. Now, in the last year, they have wavered and wobbled on whether or not they'll commit to mass deportations and have been quite soft on the problem of Islam. However, they have gotten a lot further recently. They want to do extradition deals for foreign criminals with Nayib Bukele in El Salvador. They want to do mass deportations for all illegal migrants, and they want net legal emigration, so more people leaving than coming in. That's very encouraging. The only problem is, as Elon Musk pointed out at the rally, we have a pretty disastrous 4 years ahead of us, because Keir Starmer's Labour government, despite winning fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn did in 2019, has a massive majority. And even though Keir Starmer is pretty much on the brink of being voted out by his own party for appointing Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, Peter Mandelson, the ambassador to the United States, your great country, it's unlikely Labour themselves will be gotten rid of before 2029. Unless the entire economy collapses, they're forced to go for a bailout from the International Monetary Fund, and the polls are so bad that they might as well cut their losses and stop hemorrhaging votes to Jeremy Corbyn's Islamic Party, then it's unlikely they're going to call an early election. So we have got 4 more painful years to wait until we can change our government around. In that time, we've still got mass migration, we've still got the economy being run by a bunch of doctrinaire Marxists, and we've still got massive crime, gaslighting, and people being thrown in prison for social media posts.
God have mercy. Hold on. The Islamic Party? What did you say?
Oh, yes. So Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of Labour, who was kicked out of Keir Starmer's party for anti-Semitism, who had called Hezbollah and Hamas our friends and cozied up to the IRA, decided to found a new party with a bunch of MPs that were kicked out of the Labour Party for being too radical on things like socialist policies and Palestine, and he has formed his alliance with 4 independent Muslim MPs who were elected in largely Muslim areas entirely on a pro-Palestine ticket. These include like Ayub Khan and Shokat Adam. So this party represents Islamic interests. One of the members of parliament has stood up and defended cousin marriage in parliament. It's madness that we're even at this point. And more than likely, they are going to get probably double-digit seats in the next parliament, because there are whole areas of this country, Jesse, where the English do not live at all. They are Muslim enclaves. Ed Hussein, in his book in 2021, Among the Mosques, described these areas where if you are a white Briton and you walk down the wrong street, you will be jumped by a group of Pakistani men who will beat you up for the colour of your skin. And the imams that the government pays to be moderates blame British girls for the rape gang scandal, which I'm sure Americans are aware of thanks to the work of Elon Musk and X, but up to 1 million girls over the last 50 years in over 50 towns and cities across Britain have been raped, trafficked, abused, and even murdered by largely Pakistani Muslim men. And police officers were members of the gangs. Lords in the House of Lords were part of the rapes. Members of parliament, politicians, journalists, local councillors, social workers all covered it up, and not a single person has been deported for it, and not a single person has lost their job over the cover-up. And Labour had to be dragged kicking and screaming to a national inquiry, and now the person overseeing the national inquiry is the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, a Pakistani Muslim, who supported a definition of Islamophobia that said conversations about the grooming gangs themselves are racist.
God have mercy. Connor, you wrote a wonderful piece for Courage Media about Charlie Kirk saying he needs to be MAGA's last martyr. What do you mean?
So I had the pleasure of meeting Charlie when he came over to the UK last May, and I don't know him nearly as well as obviously his friends and family. However, he really cared about our country, and he sat down and discussed the plight of Lucy Connolly, the 40-year-old mother who was locked up by Keir Starmer for 31 months for an imprudent tweet that she deleted. Meanwhile, sex offenders get no jail time and walk free. And he asked me to provide him some notes for that, and he was interviewed about it on GB News and did his debates at Oxford and Cambridge. And when we parted, I joked, it's always nice to sit across from a future US president, because I think pretty much everyone knows, everyone that interacted with Charlie, they've all got a good story about him, and they knew that he was destined for greatness. And America has not just lost an excellent political campaigner and a future president and a true patriot, but of course, his wife's lost her husband, his friends have lost a friend, and his children have lost their father. And this was entirely preventable. If the Open Society Foundation that funds these leftist activist NGOs, that foments violence in America's cities, that pays permissive DAs to unleash violent criminals and let them off with a slap on the wrist on cashless bail, if social media companies weren't allowed to censor conservatives while allowing trans shooters like Dylan Butler of Iowa last year to plan his shooting on Discord and then Discord deny it. If all of these things weren't allowed, then Charlie Kirk would still be alive today. Charlie tweeted in, I think it was 2023, that if we continue to fight with one hand behind our back, if we continue to respond with only speech to our enemies who want us dead, then we will end up losing. And I think we need to respect his legacy. We need to go after, as J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller have competently promised, the NGO industrial complex that funds trans Antifa leftist terror. They need to be shut down. No more patriots need to die. No more fathers need to be taken away from their children. No more husbands away from their wives. Charlie Kirk was one of us. And even over in Britain, all of my friends and cohorts and members of Gen Z on the right looked at it, and we found it even more impactful than President Trump's near-miss assassination. Because President Trump almost getting shot was a heart-stopping moment, and it was the president. But Charlie Kirk was one of us, and it could be any of us next.
You guys, before I let you go, do you guys struggle with this tranny terror network over there, or is it just the Islamists?
It's both. So, because we don't have a large, widespread gun culture, especially the gun-free zones that, of course, they can then enter and shoot defenseless children, we haven't had any school shooters. But we have had a lot of transgender threats of violence. We've had a lot of graffiti, a lot of threats against people's life, like J.K. Rowling and Kathleen Stock and Graham Linehan, who was just arrested, funnily enough, landing back in the UK from Arizona. So this is state-sponsored. And by the way, all of the triumphalism about the UK banning puberty blockers, the health secretary who did this was a former member of Stonewall. He was in a secret meeting recently saying that he was actually lamenting the fact that he was banning it. And in less than 2 years' time, this will come up for review. And they are currently experimenting on children with puberty blockers still in the UK in clinical trials with no cap. So this is still going on in the UK, and we need to be vigilant about it.
Yeah. Connor, brother, thank you, man. Appreciate you. All right. We have a light in the mood next. It's time to lighten the mood. And the courage of young people, not just young people, but everyone on the right, but especially young people right now, in the wake of a terrible murder has been wonderful to see. It's been so inspiring for me to see. The more I see people like this, the more heartened, I guess I should say, I get about our prospects as a country, about our future as a country. There was this teacher in Rhode Island, one of these demons, went on TikTok, celebrated Charlie Kirk's death, and man, for a student to do this takes friggin' guts.
Charlie's children do not deserve to grow up without their father. Charlie's wife did not deserve to lose her husband. Charlie did not deserve to lose his life because of a different opinion, but this teacher deserves to lose his job.
As civilians and people of our great country, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than to support, or worse yet, rejoice in violence. Someone who advocated for an arrested murderer and assassinator of one of the greatest debaters and free speakers of our time should have no place in the classroom, more so around young children.
As a student of Barrington High, I did not feel comfortable or safe with one of our teachers supporting violence. We believe this world needs God because something as cruel as this should never be celebrated. God bless Charlie Kirk and rest in peace, Mr. Kirk.
Look at those kids. We're going to be all right. I'll see you tomorrow.